So when I use the word price of the factors employed for the production, that is land, labor, and the organization cost, you need to understand that the profit is nothing but the revenue that is earned over the total cost factor. Automatically, my production cost will also go up because of the usage of materials, because of the usage of accessories and other factors. Good morning and welcome to the first session in Unit 4, first semester Business Economics for BBA, where we are going to speak about cost analysis. Now, cost is a very important function when we speak in economics. Why? Because cost analysis is all about the study of behavior of cost with respect to various production criteria, like the scale of operation, the price of the output factors, size of the output, and the overall financial aspects. The cost is not something that is only a numerical value that we are speaking about, but cost is going to talk about the behavioral aspect, which means to say that it consists of a whole lot of factors that's going to determine your scale of operation. So how well are we going to look into it is in terms of your cost analysis. Now, the cost concept, the first one is that we have an accounting and an economic cost. All of us know when we are studying accountancy as a subject, there is something called as an accounting cost that comes in. That is, when the firm starts producing goods, it has to pay for the price of factors employed for the production. So when I use the word price of the factors employed for the production, that is land, labor, and the organization cost. So when I talk about land, labor, and capital, we are talking about those production costs. These factors include the wage, the prices of raw material, fuel, power, rent, all those factors that are involved in terms of running the business. So when we move into this, these are where the accounting cost that would include the cost of production. Hence, accounting cost will take care of all payment and charges the firm makes to the supplier. So when you write down in the book of accounts saying that these are the costs involved, so that's what we are calling it as the productive factors here in terms of the accounting cost. Now, the cost concept. The cost concept comes into the picture where I'm going to get further in terms of accounting cost, which involves cash payments that are made by the firm. Economic cost, on the other hand, including accounting cost, also take into account the amount of money the businessman could have earned with his resources if he would have started the business. So another name for accounting cost would be the explicit. So when I use that word explicit cost, what does it mean? It means to say that these are the costs which are happening directly. It is already mentioned. Why? Because when you see that this is something that is owned by the very factors of production, you cannot change it. It is already inbuilt. It is there and you need to accept those costs. So a businessman earns profit only when his revenue explicits both his, explicit as well as the implicit cost. So when the revenue is more than that of the explicit and implicit, then comes the profit factor into the picture. So whenever people talk about this word called as profit, you need to understand that the profit is nothing but the revenue that is earned over the total cost factor. So unless and until you are exceeding the total cost factor here, you will not be able to come over there in terms of this answer. Now, moving further, we're going to talk about the outlay and opportunity cost. Now, outlay cost includes actual expenditures on the factors like material, rent, wages, etc. On the other hand, opportunity cost are the cost of the missed opportunities. In other words, it compared to that of one that was rejected. So, when I'm going to talk about this opportunity and outlay cost, we need to focus on these two words very carefully. Point number one is that the outlay, when I use the word outlay, that means to say that the cost that the actual expenditure included like material, rent or wages. On the other hand, when we are talking about this thing on the outlay factor, these are all predominantly the cost that has been seen towards the production. An opportunity cost is something which you have missed it because you felt the next one is better than this one. So whenever you see that the cost of losing something, yes, I'm ready to wait for 2 years when the inventory cost will come down, then I will do the production. So you are missing the opportunity now. Why? Because you feel after 2 years you're going to get a better opportunity where you can produce at a better cost and make good revenue. Similarly, outlay concepts are actual expenditures. In book of accounts, record them. Opportunity cost, about sacrificed opportunities, and the book of accounts, do not record them. Now that is very, very important for us. As an outlay cost procedure, you have to record them. So you cannot avoid the factor that I'm not paying the rent, I'm not paying the wages, or I'm not paying any other cost. These have to be recorded in your books. You cannot avoid them. Whereas opportunity cost, on the other hand, you're not going to record them because financial accounting does not allow that, saying that missed opportunity altogether. It says that very clearly that these are certain things which you have missed it up. Now, these costs are very useful. For example, if a cloth mill spins its own yarn, the opportunity cost of the yarn weaving department is the price at which they are selling the yarn, and this is used in ensuring profitability of the weaving operations. Now let's move further and try to understand about the direct or the traceable and the indirect or the non-traceable cost. Now, direct costs are one which are easily identifiable for a particular product, plant, or operations, and other factors that we are talking about. They can be either related to a product or a territory of a customer, whereas the indirect costs are one which are not easily identifiable, which have some functional relationship. For example, costs related to an electric power and common cost incurred in general operations. So whenever I say there is something called as a direct cost, that means to say that you are directly hinting at some particular cost factor related to that territory, related to that zone altogether. So that's where this direct cost becomes, easily identifiable in nature. So I'm able to tell out to the management, to the organization that yes, I have identified this cost. Now, like for example, fuel cost, power cost, or maintenance cost, or I'm going to say the vehicle running expenses, or an administrative expenses, or I'm going to talk about the operation cost. These are direct, which can be spelled out, which can be shown to the management at any point of time. On the other hand, an indirect cost is something which is bearing a functional relationship. Yes, there is a relationship, there is an understanding that cost is involved, but I will not be able to write it and give it to you. I will not be able to quantify it immediately and show it to you on the face value. So that's where the indirect cost comes into picture. Moving on, the fixed cost and the variable cost, which is very, very important in economics. Why? Because fixed cost means that this is something which will not vary. And when I use the word variable cost, that means it changes with the level of production. That's where you need to get the differences clearly. Now, when I say fixed cost, this is not going to change over a period of time. This remains constant over the period of production. On the other hand, a variable cost will vary over a period of time. So when I'm looking into this cost factor up to a certain extent, automatically with regards to the expenditure and factor, yes, this continues to go, and they are, regardless in terms of the output altogether, this keeps on going. This is something that varies a lot of time, lot of factor altogether. Similarly, the variable costs are the cost concept with the function of output in the production period. Variable costs vary directly with the output. Some of the examples of variable costs are the raw material, wages, and sometimes they vary proportionately to the output. However, these variations will depend on the utilization of the fixed facilities, resources during the production process. So everything is pretty much understandable here onto the factor that how you want to produce, what kind of inventory you want to use, how that inventory goes into production, and how do you want to vary it. Now, let me just give you an example here. If I'm going to produce a car with only one variant, my cost is pretty much fixed. But when I have different variations in the car, And when I start putting in that variant models all together, automatically my production cost will also go up because of the usage of materials, because of the usage of accessories and other factors. So variable cost is definitely something that can weigh upon a company's production depending on the type of production that they are involved. With this, I come to the end of this particular session. I hope and believe that all the concepts that we have spoken about, cost and factors, would definitely be of a great help and resource to you, both in terms of practical work as well as from the theoretical point of the subject. In the upcoming sessions, we would be talking more about the business economics in terms of the analysis and the various kind of structures. Until then, stay tuned, stay blessed. Thank you once again for joining me today on this wonderful session.